As many people do who believe in whatever higher power, we all ask that question of God, why me? My answer I received was that my kids' deaths were necessary in order to bring about change. This story is the impact that gun violence has on families and on a community that are lifelong and permanent changes that society really doesn't see. My name is Crystal Turner. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and I am an advocate and volunteer for Moms Demanding Action. Rory and Royce have transitioned from our grandchildren to our children. Legally, I am their guardian. We've been raising them since Royce was 23 months and she's now 8, and Rory was 5 and he's now 11. It starts out a great story. Jenea and Donell were my 2 middle children. It's funny because we always say they were the babies of the family, and Donell was really like Jenea's baby as well. We were all extremely close. Donell had finished up his first year at OSU. Jenea at this point had owned 5 daycare centers. She had been in the daycare business for 8 years. Her husband, Roy, was successful in his career as a community youth advocate, and they had 2 children, Roy and Royce. And so as a parent, couldn't be more proud of the 2. However, their marriage met some bumps in the roads like some marriages do when life begins to change. And after a couple of years of counseling, they made the decision that they no longer would be together. And we really thought things were great for them. They were doing the shared parenting. They had legally taken care of everything, and they were just really waiting on the final court date to have their marriage dissolved in a sense. The day was April 1st, 2015, and at exactly 12 noon, my phone rang. And what I got on the other end was crying and screaming, saying that Mr. Roy, as the staff called him, had just shot and killed Miss J and Mr. D. We were met with the yellow tape, the police, and unfortunately my daughter laying in the street, and my son's shadow of his body in a parked vehicle. It's still very hard to believe and to accept that a young man that I had loved and still love since he was 15 years old would do something so heinous. He literally had never done anything for me as a mother-in-law to ever dislike him. My son-in-law wasn't a bad person until he took my daughter and my son's life. In domestic violence situations, women are more likely to be murdered by an intimate partner at the rate of between 50 and 58% because there is a gun that has been easily accessible. And so that's how Roy and Royce came to live with me. Roy Jr. was 5 years old when this happened. He says he remembers me taking him into the bedroom and explaining that his dad had just shot and killed his mother and his uncle. What I remember is how hard it was to tell a 5-year-old that the 2 people he loved wasn't coming home that day.
When me and my grandma go somewhere, we're riding in the car and I go into deep thought about something and I ask her about it and she gives me a whole memory about it. I just want to know because as the years went by, I just accepted that she wasn't here.
Royce is the total opposite. Royce has no memory of her father or her mother, and she identifies me as mommy. She identifies her grandfather as daddy. All of a sudden, you become part of what we call grand families, grandparents who are raising grandchildren. There are a lot of kids who now live in non-traditional homes for a variety of different reasons, and sometimes death happens to be one of those. At 57 years old, we have had our challenges. All the things that they have to have that I didn't have to do with my children that now I'm doing, but I'm doing it at a much older age. It's really challenging, being very honest.
You could be sent out an alert
Oh.
that tells you she's going.
Oh, so how do I put you and Royce's pictures on there, seeing how y'all both are R&R? Like yesterday when I was both trying to figure out y'all's buses and all I seen was y'all moving. It was a good thing I could read directions. When you change your profile picture, then on my phone, on everybody else's phone, then it should show your face, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The positives to it is that because I am parenting the second time around, I really get to correct some things that I didn't know the first time around in parenting my children. So I get to give them things that I didn't get to give my children, financially more stable with them than I were with my children. I'm now raising them with a husband, where I was a single mom raising my kids. And so those things have all been a bonus. Royce is what made me go into counseling. As she grew into herself, she is the spitting image of her mother at every age, and it would be so hard to just simply hold her and look at her. And when she began to talk, because she didn't start talking until probably about a month and a half after her mom had passed, every time she would call me mommy, it just broke my heart.
Oh, 6, 12, 18.
Get it, girl. Roy is the planner. He is the bookworm of Jenea. He is in all accelerated 6th grade classes, but he also has accelerated 7th grade math and science. When I walked into Roy's math room with his teacher, and I'm looking at the work that's on the board, and I'm going, thank God this kid is smart. Roy is like the easiest kid. He's very polite, he's humble, he's respectful. He's his mom. Everything that she wanted to achieve, she achieved. And he is the same way. Thus far, everything he's wanted to achieve, he's achieved in life. I started getting phone calls and emails and text messages and things of, hey, Miss Crystal, you don't know me, but my mom, my sister, my aunt just lost a child to gun violence, and you seem to be the most positive mom we know. Can you help us? Because we don't know what to do. So I said, okay, Crystal, you have these unfortunate 15 minutes of fame. What are you going to do with it? I realized that the impact that gun violence has is something that we now really have to talk more about. Until my son and daughter's life was taken, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to our gun laws. For me, what Moms Demanding Action does is educated me on our laws. So with Moms Demanding Action, I'm just one of over 600,000 volunteers. My role is that of a survivor membership lead. And what I do is I connect with a lot of survivors initially to support them in why our stories as survivors are important. It is stories from survivors that are at the heart of why all of us as volunteers fight. And what we're fighting for is not having another family go through the experience that we've already went through in either being a victim or being a victim's family of gun violence. Jennifer and I understand as survivors, the challenge to be a part of anything, especially a group like this, means you're also acknowledging that the experience that you've had with gun violence is a real experience. The things that I advocate and I am supporting is universal background checks. We're simply saying that every person who wants to buy a gun should have to have a background check. In a situation of my daughter and my son, that universal background check would have allowed her to go into a court and say, we've had these altercations. There needs to be a background check done. It also supports the red flag law and being able to have a victim go in and speak with the law in their area to say, I know for a fact this person who once loved me has a gun, I don't know what they're going to do. You don't want to put a gun in that person's hands and risk them doing harm to themselves or someone else. And finally, the other one we work a lot on is the Stand Your Ground repeal law. And as we know, living here in Florida, the Stand Your Ground law is very active and pretty much says that if I feel threatened, I have the right to shoot someone. Does that mean that if I look at you wrong, you get to take my life? Those 3 laws can change and save so many lives every day. My goal has always been from day one is if sharing my story and doing all the protests and speaking to our elected officials that I've done in the past, if that will save a life, then I feel like I'm accomplished something. You just don't want to have this feeling. You just don't want to wake up every day realizing that someone that you love and care about is not here because someone else made a choice to take their life. You don't.